begin and essentially remind people that the meeting is being recorded, and hopefully that is fine with people. We know people who couldn't be with us tonight, and this will go into our archives as we are capturing on this recording important voices of survivors and of our keynote speaker. So welcome, and I just want to reiterate, many of you know this already, that the Cheatham County Cancer Survivors Alliance is a brand new organization, and we are delighted to have received funding that makes this possible. So well, let me see, how do I advance my screen? Here we go. So this is the agenda for this evening, and we're going to be done at 8 o'clock, and I'm going to introduce our funder via the screen and host. We're going to have a pre-program survey, and the reason for this is, there are several reasons. The main one is that this program is funded by a Tennessee Department of Health grant, and we are required, and I think it's good practice, to evaluate whether or not we're having an impact. And the survey is anonymous and it's short, and there'll be a little bit longer version the first time you see it, the pre-program survey. And then there's some questions that will not change during the course of the meeting, so we won't ask them again. And then you'll see that at the bottom of the agenda, we ask some of the same questions again to see if any answers are different after people have been present for this program. And then we're going to have 4 presenters. The first 3 are people who have had direct personal experience with cancer, all Cheatham County residents. And I'm really delighted that they were all willing to participate tonight. And then we are going to have a keynote presentation by Liz Winkler, who is an advanced practice registered nurse associated with the Vanderbilt Survivorship Clinic. We'll have a little bit of time for questions and comments and advice. Very much want advice from people about what this alliance can do. And then we'll have the post-program survey. So this, I was explaining this to a couple of people. How did we come to have this program? So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is a federal agency, you've probably heard of them, they've been in the news a lot lately. They are tasked with overseeing public health in this country, and that has many different dimensions. And so they have direct contact with every state health department. And they ask every state health department to work with an organization of community volunteers, people who work in different agencies, universities, social service groups, and people who are just interested in helping. And they work together with this group called the Tennessee Cancer Coalition. So the state Tennessee Department of Health works with this statewide group of volunteers, Tennessee Cancer Coalition, to create a document every 5 years, a comprehensive cancer plan. And the cancer plan is based on identifying where there are problems in the continuum, which has to do with prevention, screening, providing services, and providing survivorship care. And so that document, the current one, covers 2018 to 2023. And in that document, there were indicators that Cheatham County is a county that needs some help. And another way to put it is that there's a lot of opportunity to improve in Cheatham County, to improve survivorship. And so we were able to apply for money that the Department of Health gets from the Centers for Disease Control for implementing the cancer plan, by saying that we were going to start a group in Cheatham County, and we were going to find ways to help our cancer survivors here. And to apply for that money, we had to have a 501c3. Now, I'm someone who's active in the Tennessee Cancer Coalition, so I knew about this process. And I'm also active in the Cheatham County Community Enhancement Coalition. So it can get a little confusing because you can see that the word coalition shows up in 2 places, but they're 2 different organizations. The Tennessee Cancer Coalition is a statewide organization, Cheatham County Community Enhancement Coalition is just Cheatham County. And so we've been here for, I can ask Ashley and Laura to confirm, it's been more than 5 years, I think, that we have had a Community Enhancement Coalition that is made up of partners from all over the county. It includes people from the schools, from law enforcement, from faith communities, businesses, citizens, social service groups. And Ashley Bridgman, who is on the call tonight, is our current chair. And I'm really glad, Ashley, that you're here. And so the Community Enhancement Coalition applied for the grant and received it, and it became our grant July 1st. And so we started planning to do what we said we were going to do when we applied for the money. And one of the things we said we were going to do was to hold town halls. So I'll thank a lot of individuals later, but that picture, I'm hoping, gives people the context in which this town hall is happening.
That makes it much better for me. You know, you and I talked, and I was trying to comprehend everything yesterday. I think it was yesterday or day before, and that really puts it together for me.
Oh, I'm so glad, Beverly. I
got it now.
I appreciated your help. So I'm going to now go back to my agenda, and then I will stop sharing my screen, and our first spokesperson for cancer survivors in Cheatham County is going to be Beverly Nicholson. And Beverly is a 3-year breast cancer survivor, and she will be discussing available resources for cancer patients and challenges that cancer patients face. Thank you very much, Beverly.
Thank you, Ms. Rebecca, and I really appreciate being invited to be a part of this. And you know, I'm honored that Liz thought of me to ask you to invite me and Paula. And again, I'm tickled that George is with us tonight and is able to talk to us, because I know we've all had similar journeys, and it's just can be different for anybody, even if you have the same type of cancer, the same stage of cancer, the same grade of cancer. The journey for each person is very different. And, you know, that leads me into kind of some of the things I want to talk about. And I'm going to start out from the doctor's perspective, like where you start with your physicians. I kind of got a bum deal when I found out I had breast cancer. I'd had a mammogram 6 months before, and it didn't catch my cancer. So what that's done is, you know, I feel like maybe if it had been caught a little earlier, I wouldn't have had as extensive treatment, but I was stage 3C with invasive mammary carcinoma. And I really didn't question my doctors a whole lot. I just kind of scooted along and didn't ask questions and trusted them to know what was best for me. And through this journey, I've learned only I know what's best for me, because I'm in my body. So what helped me, my best resources is having good physicians, like with Tennessee Oncology. My oncologist, she was phenomenal at helping me have other resources, and the nurses in Tennessee Oncology. I went to the office here in Springfield, and my oncologist was from Franklin, but she comes to Springfield once a week. And, you know, they give you a book and you're overwhelmed with all this stuff. And unless you have access to a computer or something like that, you don't really know what your options are. So one of the things that was a great asset to me that people can use, and most oncology places should have it, is the nurse navigators. And I had two. I had one that was with Tennessee Oncology, and I had another one that was with St. Thomas West Hospital, where I had my mastectomy and my reconstruction. At first, I kind of pushed the navigators to the side, and I was like, I just don't want to rehash this. It's going to be another opinion that's going to confuse me. Well, I gave them a chance, and it ended up being because I was willing to ask questions. And that's how you learn, is you ask questions. And don't ever be afraid to say, you know, I just don't know know this, and there's no stupid question at all. It's just whatever if you don't know it, it's okay. There's no need to be embarrassed by it, or, I mean, and they deal with that on a daily basis. So those two are my first, besides my oncologist, was my first help. And then my Tennessee oncology psychologist, she was fantastic at giving me resources and guides and where to go. And yes, this is normal. No, that's normal. Those were the medical professionals that helped me. But what helped me more than anything was finding people who had experienced what I was experiencing. And a lot of you probably can say this. People who love you and have gone through stuff, they reach out to you a lot. And I know George experienced a lot of that. And I'm sure Liz Drake did too. And I'm sure a lot of you others have. And Amy Douglas reached out to me, Paula Lee, and just so many other people that had been through it. But, you know, once I got to researching, I think the biggest help for me was my group at the Robertson County YMCA. It was the After Breast Cancer Care Group. And the YMCA has a lot of other resources. That was one huge organization, but Pink Out for Hope there in Pleasant View, that was tremendous. Now, these two organizations are specific to breast cancer. And Amy Douglas and Diane Seeley, local Pleasant View natives, started the Pink Out for Hope. It used to be called Pink Out Pleasant View. But if you know somebody that has breast cancer, or you're a caregiver of somebody that has breast cancer in the Cheatham County area, and it goes all the way up to Harpeth, they're fantastic. They have, it started out to raise awareness and to raise funds for Susan Komen. They did walks, we did just all kinds of things, and dinners, balls. They did, I think there was a motorcycle rally one year. There's been a lot of different things to raise money, and they raise big amounts of money. Well, their main goal was to get to where they could help people who lived in Cheatham County by paying for doctor's visits, or if somebody needed transportation, they could pay for that. And on their website, it's pinkoutforhope.org. You can go out there and you can look. There's an application. You just need, and it gives you the parameters of the things that you need to provide in order to get help. But they will help cancer patients, or breast cancer patients. But another thing that isn't so specific to breast cancer was the American Cancer Society. I didn't, thankfully, need some of their things that they offer, but they also have resources for financial aid. They have resources for, if you know somebody that may be suffering from cancer that's from out of town, if you have a parent and they have a doctor in Nashville and you need a place for them to stay, they have a hotel there on Charlotte Avenue.
Beverly?
Yes.
I'm going to give you 1 minute to wrap up. I wish we'd given you more time on this. I wish we'd
That's
given
okay.
you more
That's
time
okay.
on the agenda.
I'll run
Thank
through the
you.
list. That's no problem. I knew this would happen. But American Cancer Society is a great option. They can, they go in, women can get wigs, makeup, just all kinds of things. You have Martha's Song in Springfield. That's a help. Gilda's Club in Nashville. The American Cancer, I don't think it's American Cancer, but you've got Camp Bluebird in Nashville. That's a camp that any cancer survivor or cancer patient can go to, and they're caregivers. The year that I went, I was going to go, I ended up, it was my scheduling with my mastectomy and everything got in the way. So I didn't get to go have fun that year. So I was going to do it this year, and then COVID hit. But there's just so many options out there. But the biggest thing is you've got to ask questions and research, but make sure you're on noteworthy websites. Don't, make sure it is the American Cancer Society. And, the American Cancer Society has Relay for Life as well. So those are lots of good resources. And the more you dig, the more resources you can find, from financial to just support, counseling, and that sort of thing.
So I'm delighted that Beverly has agreed to be a part of the Alliance, and there will be more opportunities for her to help us spread information, share information. Thank you very much, Beverly. I
Thank
really
you all.
apologize for cutting you off.
No, please. I'm glad you
Really-
did, because I could talk forever. You know that. George knows
So-
that too.
So I'm very pleased that George joined us for this evening. He is very generous to have come on board with very little notice. We've had a number of people who have volunteered to help and then had things come up tonight that made it impossible for them to join us. So George is joining us on very short notice. And I will say that some people, probably a lot of people, know George. He is quite a community servant, and has done a lot for Cheatham County and Pleasant View in particular. George, welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Well, I got diagnosed with a leukemia, brand of leukemia in May of 2017. And I'm going to tell you what this is. I couldn't tell you this without writing it down. Blastic plasmatoid dendritic cell neoplasm. So this leukemia was very rare. In fact, there's no consensus on a treatment, so they give it the general treatment. But the one thing about this particular brand of leukemia, that it can't be killed by chemo. It'll be suppressed, but it'll always come back. And the only thing that kept me alive at the time was a stem cell transplant. And my brother was a perfect match for a donor. So we did that on the 6th of September, 1917. Before that, without the transplant, I had about 8 to 12 months to live. So right now I'm on day 1184 since transplant. And as Beverly said, a lot of the things you're going through your mind when you get this was, holy cow, why me? One, well, I never really thought I was healthy as a horse, but I felt pretty darn good. And then Beverly was going through the same thing the same time I was. So we sort of had a mutual support going that way. I know Beverly and her husband, Tim, for quite a few years now. So we had the transplant, and we, going forward, I always had a good attitude. I think that's important because you can't go in thinking you've been beat. You got to fight. Beverly went through a real tough time there. Paula Lee has certainly been through some tough times. If it wasn't for a strong positive attitude, I don't think we'd all be talking today about all this stuff. The concerns that most people have are financial. I'm 67 years old now. I was 64 when I got diagnosed. The questions you might have, would you lose your house? Are you going to lose your, what do you got to mortgage your house to pay for these bills? I think in the 3 years I've been under treatment, I'm probably in over $1 million. But thank God, 27 years in the military. And as I told my wife one day, when the fact that I have that financial strain, kind of made all those watches and midnight watches worth it, in the many years I had at sea. And I think you're also concerned about long-term quality of life. When I was diagnosed, I was at Centennial Hospital because I went in thinking I was having a heart issue, and they told me the good news was it wasn't a heart, but it was cancer. And you're like, holy crap. So I spent 30 days in the hospital there, 24/7, 7 days, a 7-day regimen of chemo, and everything worked the first time through. It wasn't, I tell people all the time, it's not that I'm the perfect example of what will happen, but I'm the perfect example of what can happen. And I had 20, and I got out of that 30 days, and I'm feeling pretty good. The first round worked. I didn't have to go through it a second time. And then the doctor tells me that I wasn't a good candidate for the transplant. And if they did the transplant, I had a 90% chance of dying. Well, that was a long walk out of the hospital that day. And you're kind of bummed out. You're thinking, holy crap. And then he also said, I recommend a second opinion at Vanderbilt. So, of course, we did that. And a great doctor at Vanderbilt come up and said, he said, we're, if we do nothing, you'll die. He said, we're not afraid to try this transplant. We think the transplant will work for you. There's no reason why it wouldn't work for you. So they went ahead and did it. And 3 years later, here we are. I think that the keys to success in this is family support. You get to meet other people like Beverly and I and Paula, you know, sort of this little town of Pleasant View. We've all been through this stuff. You're thinking you're seeing the end of the tunnel, and it really isn't the case. You got the strength of each other. You got support from each other. You know, family support. You know, everybody believing you can do it. I gave a daily update, and a daily update while I was in treatment for the cancer, and it was always a day number, you know, because the day you get the transplant, your 0 day. That's your newborn on date. So as I went through the 30 days of everyday hospital visits, then a couple of days a week, and then a couple of days a month, and then a couple of months at a time, I would give an update. And through that response, it gave me a group of prayer warriors, which were huge. I mean, everybody, I mean, I had 225 to 250 responses every day of people lifting me up in prayer. That I thought was important. And I think also your caregivers. You know, I had a wife that, except for like 2 hours, spent every day in the hospital with me for that 30 days, and then drove me back and forth to all these appointments for the first 100 days after the transplant. And I think that says a lot for her, and having that support, how important that is. So I would say, as in closing, to get out of my 5 minutes, is have a conviction, have confidence that you're going to pull through it. Think positively, because there's some that don't, but there's many more that will. When I was told, you know, my options, 20% of 100 people, 20% that were running marathons at the time of their transplant are running marathons 5 years later. 20% have other issues and they're not going to do so well, but that leaves 60% in the middle that, you know, are living normal lives. Me as a couch potato, it worked out good. I don't know why yet, but you know, that's still to be told. But I couldn't be happier with the way things have worked out for me. Great staff at Vanderbilt, and just have faith that you will get through it, because you can get through it. Like I said, I'm not a good example of what will happen, but I'm darn sure a good example of what could happen. So that's it. Thank you.
George, thank you again for agreeing to speak and share, I think, a lot of very important details about your story. We're now going to have a presentation from Laura Durham, who many of you may know. She has been very active in the coalition since before it was officially a coalition. Laura is our executive director. And Laura, I'm going to let you tell your story as I think you are going to be great at it, at telling your story. So thank you. I welcome you to the town hall.
Okay, sorry, I had trouble unmuting. Can you hear me now, Rebecca?
I can hear you, but you have no video. I don't know if you meant to have no video.
I have no video. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I will be really brief here. I am Laura Durham, and I'm the director of the coalition, and I am the parent of a child that has cancer. My son, Jeremy, was diagnosed with cancer when he was 15 years old. He was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. You know, it's one of the worst things I think you can hear is that your child has cancer, but after that, everything was pretty positive. It was in stage 1. It was Hodgkin's, and Hodgkin's is a kind of cancer that is pretty responsive to treatment, has a good treatment success rate. Of course, our lives were turned upside down with medical appointments and the roller coaster that goes along with a diagnosis like that. But he was just entering high school in the 9th grade and had to have a homebound teacher. We were referred to Vanderbilt Pediatric for his treatment, and they were all great and made us feel comfortable and answered questions. And, you know, that was a really good experience. He had to get the bone marrow test and a port put in, things that were, you know, really invasive. And then he had to go for chemo once a week. So for a year, I didn't work on Fridays, but I was fortunate that I had a job where I earned a good amount of sick time. And so I didn't miss any, have to miss any paychecks for that, for us going to get chemo once a week. What I wanted to talk about, we learned of many, many resources at Vanderbilt, and we're just really taken in and carried and cared about. And one that has really stood out in Jeremy's life is Camp Horizon. Camp Horizon is a camp for children that have or have had cancer, ages 6 to 17. It's held every summer right at our own Camp Bethany Hills in Kingston Springs. It's in between Kingston Springs and White Bluff. Their mailing address is Kingston Springs. I'm fairly sure it's still in Cheatham County, but it's really close to Dixon County. But the camp is a camp where kids can just be kids for a week. Being an adolescent, Jeremy got a lot of sort of unwanted attention. He just wanted to disappear into the background as a 15-year-old boy, but he became known as, you know, the kid with cancer. The youth pastor at church shaved his head when Jeremy lost his hair to make him feel like he fit in. But there was a lot of specific attention given to him. So at camp, everybody is kind of a level playing field. And so these kids really bonded. So Jeremy started when he was 15. He went 2 years as a camper. When he was old enough, at 18, he became a CIT, a counselor in training. He is now 10 years in remission. He is a counselor. He's works full-time at UPS. He takes 1 week of his vacation every year to go to Camp Horizon and be a counselor. He's married and lives in Pleasant View and has not had any reoccurrences. Camp Horizon was initially funded by the American Cancer Society for years and years because the camp is free to campers and their families, and it's a 5-day camp. A couple of years ago, the Cancer Society said they could no longer fund it, and a private 501c3 out of Brentwood formed, and they are called the Horizon. Let's see, let me get it right. The Horizon Foundation, I believe. There is a lot of information on Camp Horizon website, and I'll drop that information in the chat. But that was really something that stood out in our lives during that whole roller coaster ride. And I encourage you to look at that Camp Horizon website and find out more information. There's a video on the first page, and Jeremy appears in it several times. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Laura. I really appreciate all three of you taking time. Before we hear from Liz, I skipped over the pre-program survey. So Amber is going to put that up now, and we'll take a few minutes to go through that. I'm not 100% sure if people are using a phone that you'll be able to respond, but it's up now, and it is anonymous. It's not going to be linked with your name. And so we're only going to have a few minutes, hopefully, to scroll through. And Amber, you can tell me the way it looks on my screen. Well, actually, all of you can tell me. It looks to me like I can complete it just by clicking the boxes. And so we'd like you to do that as quickly as possible. There are, let's see, there are six questions to this survey. So please answer as quickly as possible. And you'll see when you've completed the 6 questions. Looks like I have to answer every question to submit. Yes, you have to answer, give some answer to every question to submit. And then, Amber, do we have to wait for everybody to finish the first survey for you to post the second one?
That's up to you. I can either wait until it tells me whenever everyone has completed it. So I can either wait till then, or I can wait until 3 minutes or whatever you would like.
Okay. Okay, well, let's wait maybe just 1 more minute. It's possible that everybody won't be planning to complete the survey, so I don't think we'll wait for everyone to complete it. But maybe 1 more minute. Would you say that half of the people have completed it?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and put the second survey up. So I want to make sure we have time for Liz. So the second survey is more of a knowledge survey, and so it's got questions in it that of information that we hope that this event makes a difference, and it's also going to tell us what topics we might want to include in future town halls. So again, please answer as quickly as possible. So Amber, are we close to having everyone or most people have completed it? We'll give another 30 seconds and then we'll close that survey. Okay. It is my pleasure to introduce Liz Winkler. Liz has been at Vanderbilt for 25 years as a nurse and a couple of 2 years now in the Vanderbilt Survivorship Clinic. And she has very graciously agreed to provide some pretty important information about what cancer survivors can do to help themselves and where they can go for help. And as several people have already pointed out, it is important to ask for help. So Liz, anything else that you want to say about yourself? So we scheduled for Liz to have 15 minutes and a little bit of time for some questions if people want to ask her questions after her presentation. So Liz, I turn the screen over to you.
Well, first of all, just thank you for inviting me to be a part of your discussion tonight. I am going to say, though, I'm a little intimidated because I'm following 3 true experts in the field of survivorship. So I don't quite measure up to the experts that preceded me. So a little intimidated. But I also want to just shout out to George and say, George, it's good to see you. I spent 13 years and I still do spend some time as a nurse practitioner in the stem cell transplant clinic. So you really do my heart good to see you tonight, George.
Well, it was interesting. He asked me today if I remembered you from Vanderbilt. I said, I've had so many great nurses there, but now that I've seen you, I absolutely do remember you.
We had some fun together. I remember.
Yes, yes, we did, ma'am.
You look
guys-
amazing. And
I feel amazing.
you really
Thank
have
you.
done my heart good to see you tonight.
Well, you guys are a great team. I'll give you that.
All right. Well, you were a true expert in the field.
Well,
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
I can.
Okay, great. It worked. I've been practicing. Anyway, basically, what I just kind of wanted to start with is just to, if you're not have any experience or any knowledge about what survivorship clinics do, I just wanted to give you a little background. There's now believed to be about 16 million Americans that are living with a cancer or living with a cancer diagnosis. That's about 5% of our population. And these are the cancer survivors. And if we look back 50 years when the war on cancer started, we've gone from 1 million people living with cancer to now 16 million. And through good early detection and prevention and improving treatments for cancer, improved symptom management, you can really tell that the oncologists have been doing a really super job to make such strides in improving the longevity and the life expectancy of cancer patients. But because now there are so many survivors, that does put a strain on your oncology services. So the survivorship clinics were developed probably in the last 15 years or so to be kind of an extender of oncology services. That gives your oncologist the opportunity to focus on treating the cancer and managing the cancer. And then the survivorship clinic can assist in managing those long-term effects of cancer treatment. And it's estimated about 92% of patients that have a cancer diagnosis are going to have some long-term effects. And I often say if they included the caregivers, that would be about 200%. And if they included things like financial effects, then it's probably going to be about 300%. So it's very widespread in the fact that people with cancer have long-term effects. In any conversation I have, it seems, whether I'm talking to survivors, patients in my clinic, or other oncology providers, we all have a conversation about what is a cancer survivor, and it's widely debated. But I'll tell you, here in the survivorship clinic, we do need a working diagnosis of a survivor so that we know how to address care. So for us, that means that a cancer survivor is any patient with a cancer diagnosis that has completed their definitive treatment and going through the remainder of their life. So if you've anyone that's finished their chemo or surgery, radiation, that initial treatment that gets you into remission, that's when we consider you a survivor. But there's many other organizations that say it starts from the diagnosis, and I do believe that. It starts from the diagnosis, but that's our working diagnosis. But cancer survivors have their thoughts too about what a survivor is, and many patients do not identify with the term survivor because many feel that's just too heroic for what they've been through, and that maybe that's just not the term that they feel comfortable with. Many would want to be referred to as a patient with a diagnosis of cancer, a person living with cancer. Some like the term thriver. Some just say I'm a survivor of the treatment itself. But I think everybody that I talk to agrees that cancer does not define us. It does not define me in my career, and it does not define a patient in their life either. But any cancer patient seems to tell me, and this has been my experience, that victim doesn't define them either. Yes, they didn't ask for cancer, they didn't have a way to prevent it coming, but they're not powerless in their cancer. It's been my experience that cancer survivors are very resilient people, and that they can want to play an active role in their life going forward. And that's where the power base really lies. Now, I did talk a little bit about how we feel about how we use it as a working diagnosis, survivor as the working diagnosis of survivor in our clinic, but I'm not really sure that I am comfortable at times with the term survivor either, because it kind of conjures up images of slaying dragons and coming home a victor, and that's where happily ever after begins. But I think most of you know that that's probably not really the full story, because what the story that most cancer patients will tell us is the first 1 to 2 years after treatment may be as hard or sometimes harder than the cancer treatment itself. Your treatment's complete, but you're left with a whole unique set of medical issues that are related to the treatment, often not even to the cancer, but to the treatments itself. Social support tends to wane. Those friends and family that were so close for so long are slowly kind of getting back to their lives and their way of life. You're seeing your oncologist less. And forever your life has been changed. You will never look at it the same again. So you're kind of faced at that point with what is your new normal, because you know normal's not going to be like you've seen it before. And where do you find new normal? Is your new normal going to be fatigue? Is it going to be that I can't work a full day anymore? Is my hair never going to be full again? So many things that you think, is this my new normal? And where do you find that new normal? So one of the cornerstones of the survivorship clinic is developing a what we call a cancer treatment summary or a cancer care plan. And we refer to that as our roadmap to recovery. So that's where we're trying to bring some of those issues together. So these are some things that I feel that would be beneficial to know if you were to do what I do and develop your own cancer treatment summary. Instead of me developing your cancer treatment summary, how about you develop your own? And I just kind of want to show you how you can do that. In this day of COVID, I just want you to be able to have a do-it-yourself, do your own cancer survivorship care plan. But in order to do your own cancer care plan, you need to know a few things, and you need to know your health history. And I've listed two different diseases on this slide. The first one I just picked, type 2 diabetes. When you talk about your health history, many will tell a health provider, well, I'm a diabetic. Well, then we have to ask questions. Well, are you type 1? Are you type 2? When were you diagnosed? What are you taking for it? What have you done for it? Who's treating you? So I kind of put that example in because that tells us a lot as providers what we need to be thinking about. If you're a type 2 diabetic and you're on metformin, there's things that we have to start thinking about from side effects of metformin. Are long-term effects of diabetes. We need to be concerned about your eyes and your kidneys and your feet. So that tells us a lot. So the more information that you can provide to your provider is going to help you be healthier. So I just put that as an example. And so when patients come to my clinic, I get pretty specific because, and I'm going to use breast cancer as an example here, because if you tell your provider you have breast cancer, that tells us something, but it tells us a lot more if you can tell us how advanced it was, what type it was, and especially special characteristics, like if it was estrogen or progesterone positive or HER2 negative. This is information that is yours. And I know Beverly seems to know her pathology very well, and I'm very proud of her because she really gave me, I had to perk up when she was talking because she's my example of a survivor that is not becoming a victim. This is a survivor that's resilient, that knows by taking the power in her own hands, she's going to have a better health outcome. So the more you know about your treatment, the more you're going to be able to discuss your treatment, to advocate for yourself. So I'm hopefully trying to just show you where the power is, and the power is with you. Other things in a breast cancer treatment are not only that you have the breast cancer and its characteristics, but how were you treated? Did you have a mastectomy? Was it a full mastectomy, bilateral mastectomy? Did you have sentinel node biopsies, or did you have a full lymph adenectomy? Did you have radiation? Where was the radiation? Was it to your axilla, right breast? Were you on Arimidex or one of the other aromatase inhibitors? And what chemotherapy did you have? So I like to bring all of that together because that's predicative of how your recovery and your life expectancy, how it's going to affect that. So those are things that are important for you to know. And this is all your information. And in the survivorship clinic, that's what I do all day, is I bring all your information together in one document. You have the record. We also bring together what you've already experienced, how it's been managed, and then what could happen to you down the road. What could you expect, or what could happen? Once we develop this treatment summary, it goes to the other player in your healthcare, your primary care. The survivorship clinic, as I said, is an extender of the oncology service, but we really are also seen as a bridge between oncology and primary care. We've got our foot in both worlds, essentially. We understand the oncology, but we also want to know and show how it plays into the other aspects of your health. And the more eyes you have on you, the healthier you're going to be. So if your oncologist also, or excuse me, if your primary care also understands what we're watching for, what to look for, you have another set of eyes. So those are the things, some of the things to know to develop your stay at home. This is COVID, stay home cancer treatment summary. And here are some more things to know. What are the long-term effects that might be related to your treatment? And know the signs and symptoms of the recurrence of your cancer. And know what your family history and your cancer history is. Because just like you hear so many times how early the detection of cancer is the key to having good outcomes and to lessen the burden of cancer, it's true of its effects too. So if you know that you've had, and I'm going to just use chemotherapy as an example, if you know you've had adriamycin and you already know that it could affect your heart, and you know what those symptoms are, that you've got a cough, or you're coughing up pink tinged sputum, are you having swelling in your legs or chest pain, you might be thinking, I better get to the doctor because this might be from my adriamycin, because we know those effects to the heart can even occur 20 years later. So again, early detection of what your side effects can be is going to play a role in your outcome, in the state of your health. And know the signs and symptoms of recurrence of your cancer. Many, I will say, and this, when I came into this role, I didn't really realize this until I came into this role, but many of our providers in oncology don't share this information freely because they don't want you to think that it can come back to you. But again, the power is in your hands. And if you know that, again, you have that advantage of early intervention, early detection. As far as knowing your family history and your cancer history, I'm sure as breast cancer patients, I'm sure Beverly can tell you that that's the first thing we start looking for in many cancers. Is this something that could be hereditary or some genetic component to it, and how that's going to not only affect the treatment of your cancer, but also how it can affect your care down the road, how we're going to monitor for other cancers, or how it's going to affect your family. So those are some things to know. But you're going to learn these things if you know what was in the last slide and we put it into your care plan. These things are going to come into your care plan. So then we get to a question that every new patient asks me. I don't want it to come back, and are there things that I can do to prevent it? And again, in my role in oncology and hematology, and I started my career back in the 90s as an RN, and most my entire career has been on oncology and primary hematology and stem cell transplant. But when people would ask me, is there anything we could do? We'd always say, oh no, there's nothing you could do, because we don't want to say, it feels like if we say, if there's nothing you can do, we say that because we don't want you to think it's something that you did. But there are things, lifestyle modifications, that a lot of research has been done and does impact and lower your risk of recurrence or other cancers. And one of those is diet. And almost every cancer institution in the world now is embracing the Mediterranean diet as the diet most likely to reduce your risk of cancer. So, and there at the bottom, I put the website for one of my favorite resources for the Mediterranean diet, which is the Old Ways. So just a few principles. And when I talk about diet, and I do every day, several times a day, I say there's 7 or 8 principles to the Mediterranean diet. And it can be overwhelming to take all those changes at once. So you just look at them and you say, you know what? I think I can get seafood in twice a week. And that becomes your habit. And 3 weeks in, that's become your habit. And slowly add these things in. But those principles are eat fruits and vegetables. Limit your red meat. And by that, we're talking about less than an ounce a day to reduce your risk of colorectal cancer. Eliminating charred grilled meats and processed meats. And 1 vegetarian meal a week. We can all do that. And limiting our dairy products, because the jury's still kind of out on how dairy products and the animal fats of dairy products plays into our risk of cancer. And switch from whole grains and incorporate healthy fats into your diet, which is extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, nuts, that type of thing. But again, my favorite website is the Old Ways, and it's a nonprofit organization. There's a few other things you can do, and this is my least favorite slide of all. I will share that with you freely, but these are the recommendations on exercise and reducing your cancer risk. Now, a lot of the research suggests that your best way to reduce your risk of cancer is the more vigorous exercise. That exercise is going to get your heart rate up. You're going to start sweating a little bit. It's going to be hard to talk. It's usually like jogging or the elliptical machine, some of those type of things. But if you're just not up for that, it just means you're going to have to work a little harder, because moderate exercises then goes to 150 to 300 minutes a week. So it's 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous exercise a week, or 100, or I think I got that wrong. 75 to 150 minutes a week, vigorous exercise. So that maxes out about 30 minutes 5 times a week, or double that if you're going a little slower, like I do. So that's kind of that's the recommendations. Plus, you want to think about your exercise, kind of break it down to 70% aerobic and about 30% strengthening and resistance. There are a few other things that you can do. And for some, this is their least favorite slide. I readily own that the exercise slide is my least favorite, but many people don't like it when I bring this slide up. And even the very first one is hard for someone, but everybody that I meet gets the little lecture on having a primary care provider and having annual physicals. Annual physicals are preventive medicine and should be covered by your insurance. So there you go. We know historically and from research that people live longer that have a primary care provider. So that's one of the things that you can do. Because one of the things that's interesting to know is cancer survivors are more likely to die of cardiovascular death than cancer. So keep with your primary care doctor so they can monitor things like your diabetes or do surveillance for diabetes, heart disease, cholesterol, those type of things. The next one, don't smoke. And if you don't smoke, don't start smoking. There's just no reason for it. If you have ever been a smoker, one of the things that is important, if you stop smoking in the last 15 years, great, that's wonderful. But you might want to consider and talk to us or your primary care provider or your oncologist about having lung cancer screening for early detection. And limit your alcohol intake. For women, that's 1 drink a day, and for men, that's 2, and I still think that's probably too generous. Use your sunscreen and work on reducing your stress. You know life is too short, but this is why I say a lot of this slide is nobody's favorite. And keep up on your cancer screenings, annual mammograms, PSA levels, pap smears, pelvic exams, colonoscopy, lung cancer screenings. And if you do have any type of genetic markers like BRCA1 or BRCA2, that needs to be known so that we can adjust these screenings. So that we put all together what goes in the care plan, and that's kind of what I talked about. But what I want to do next is make our care plan. So this is one of my favorite websites, and I use this frequently.
Liz,
Yeah.
I just want to check with you because we are over time.
Okay, I'm just not going to do everything I want. I'm just going to show you this website.
Okay, two minutes, and that I just.
This is fine.
Thank you.
I got carried away.
Thank.
So anyway, this is the OncoLife website, and this is the survivorship care plan. And this is a care plan that I refer to as your take home, do at home, it's COVID, I want to still know. So the website is oncolife.oncolink.org, and it's developed my cancer survivorship care plan. You open that, and then you pick the patient version, and it's going to take you from there. It's going to ask you some demographic information, and then it's going to ask you, it's not going to let me just skip through like I'd hoped, but it'll ask you about your cancer type, what surgeries, what treatments you've had, and then it's going to generate a care plan for you. And really, it looks a lot like what I do in the clinic. So you've had an insider's view at what I do. So I thank you for your time, and I have enjoyed being a part of your evening. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Liz, thank you so much. Again, I wish we learned, we're learning. It would have been good to give everybody who spoke tonight more time because you all are experts and have a wealth of information. We have a post survey that Amber's going to post, and I'm going to say a few things more about the Alliance. One of our goals is to educate people about a program called Cancer Thriving and Surviving. Cancer Thriving and Surviving is a free 6-week program for cancer survivors and their family caregivers. And we would be offering it via Zoom now because that's the way we're doing things. And in the 6-week Cancer Thriving and Surviving program, each participant gets a special book that is a really great resource called, this is it, Living a Healthy Life. And it is meant to be a support and education group for people to learn about how they can do many of the things that our speakers tonight have talked about, giving each other support and getting support for managing their own health care. And the program is, usually the groups are 8 to 12 people in a group. And there are several of us who have been trained to be facilitators of this group. The Tennessee Department of Health provides the books and helps organize training for people who want to be facilitators of Cancer Thriving and Surviving. And they're especially interested in having people who are cancer survivors to be the facilitators, to be trained. So we will be sharing more information about that. And really, I'm going to welcome all of you, anybody who is interested in joining the Alliance, please go to the Cheatham County Coalition's website and you will see a place for you to click that you are interested in being part of the Alliance. And we are going to be calling you and telling you about when our meetings are and and other ways that you can help us. So I hope that you will consider joining the Alliance, share information about the page that is on the Cheatham County Coalition's website. And thank you very much for participating this evening. The survey will help us to identify some areas where we might improve. Well, we certainly hope we'll improve. And Liz, if you're willing, I sent a note out a little bit earlier saying that we were going to go until 8:10 and give people, if there is a question or two, briefly. And then the one other thing I want to mention is that we have ordered a mask that has the logo that some people complimented at the beginning, a mask that has the Cancer Alliance logo on it. And if you email us an address, we will mail it to you, or we can arrange for you to come by the coalition office and pick it up. But we would really like to share those that logo and spread it around town in a way that's very functional. So Liz, are you open for a few questions? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm back.
All right. Would anybody like to ask Liz or any of the other speakers any questions in the last few minutes?
Rebecca, I think I would like to ask Liz a question. When I finished my treatment, I'm going to back up a little bit. This is an answer to a prayer for me. And because I have met a point where I guess I thought I was going to go back to just being back to my old normal. And I've just now started accepting my new normal, begrudgingly, but I've realized life is not going to be the same, and that's just how I've got to deal with it. But when my doctors at Tennessee Oncology gave me my advanced care plan, they handed me a book and said, here, and pretty much left the rest to me. We did, to my knowledge, they don't have a person like you to help.
No, they do not. They do not have a survivorship care, or they do not have a survivorship clinic.
That's sad.
So basically, when anybody can come to our clinic, it doesn't have to be. You can come from anywhere. You don't have to have gotten your treatment at Vanderbilt. You can come from Tennessee Oncology. I get patients that come from all over the country that have relocated and want to establish care at Vanderbilt. If they've completed their therapy, they come to me first. So anybody can come. The first visit with me is an hour, which is usually more than you get. For your first diagnosis, the day of your diagnosis, it may be an hour, and this one is an hour. So all of that stuff that you got in the book, we put into that care plan and we discuss all of that. It's really a set down educational visit, but then we follow about once a year.
Is that something that insurance helps with?
Yes, it is covered by insurance.
Can you message me your contact information?
Sure, actually, why don't I see if I can put it in the chat?
Oh, okay. And then I can also connect you, Bev and Liz, via email.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Rochelle Roberts. So I'm actually from the Tennessee Department of Health, the Comprehensive Cancer Control Program. The reason why you probably didn't see a survivorship nurse navigator at the clinic is that, so a lot of the hospitals are, well, there's 31 hospitals across the state that are COC certified, so Commission on Cancer. And those certified clinics have the opportunity to select what they want to focus on for their survivorship program services. And they can have the nurse navigator, but I'm fairly certain they only have to choose 2 of maybe 10 to 12 options. So I think that's a great area to push these COC certified organizations to say, hey, this is what's important to us, and this is what we think would be the most beneficial for you guys to pursue. So that's a really good area to focus on. And there's the Commission on Cancer has a website, and they have all of the clinics that are certified through them listed. So, and we do have actually a COC representative. He's based out of Knoxville, I'm fairly certain. His last name is McLaughlin. Cannot think of his first name right now, but yeah, so that's really interesting to get your point of view on that. But I think pushing the nurse navigators is really, really important.
Rochelle, thanks for joining us tonight. So
Yeah.
Rochelle's name isn't on this thank you slide that I'm about to show, but
That is okay.
Rochelle has definitely been a big help to us in getting our grant and getting, giving us advice about things as basic as our rack card that we're distributing around town. And I'm trying to figure out how to get my slides to advance. And there we go. So you can see it was a big team. These are the names of people who have been involved in planning for, since August we started meeting. And I'm very grateful to this team. And your name could be here. You can join us as well. And I already have gotten a commitment from Beverly, thank you. And we will be planning lots of other activities over the coming year, the rest of this year. And again, Rochelle has been a big help, as have other people in the Department of Health. So we are 11 minutes over, and that is clearly not even long enough to have heard from people who would have had other things to add. I want to thank you again, all of you, for coming to participate tonight and for giving us your thoughts. I wrote into the chat, but not everybody may have seen it. Please send us your email address, email us your home address if you would like one of these adorable masks, adorable, very well-made masks. And also please let us know through the coalition website if you would like to be a part of the Alliance and help us in planning the next town hall and other events all across the county. So thanks everybody. Thank you, Amber, who
Thanks for having me, everybody.
Behind the screen. Amber is pulling all the levers and buttons and bells. And Amber, I'm very grateful for your being on the seat there, managing everything for us. So thanks.
Rebecca,
Oh, there's Amber's face. I'm sorry.
Good seeing you, Liz.
Good seeing you too, George. Great seeing you, actually. Great seeing you.
I think I heard another last word there.
I was just saying thank y'all.
Oh, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a
We'll
good-
meet again. We'll meet again. We'll do this again, a different version. Have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Ann.
Bye-bye.